Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
You ever have a moment where you start to feel like a ghost in your own home? Not just ignored, but deliberately unseen? That's what it had become for me. A slow, calculated vanishing act I didn't even realize was happening until it was too late to ask when it started. It began, I think, on a Wednesday. The day itself was unremarkable. Work was the usual grind. The weather was gray, and the traffic didn't let up until nearly 8. I remember walking through the door and hearing nothing. No hello, no glance, not even the sound of movement. She was in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone like I didn't exist. I said her name. Once. Twice. Nothing. I thought maybe she had headphones in or was lost in thought. So I walked closer, gently touched her shoulder. She pulled away like I'd burned her. I stood there, stunned for a second. "Hey, are you okay?" I asked. Still nothing. She just walked past me, phone in hand, expression flat. Not angry. Not sad. Just blank. Like I was a piece of furniture she'd gotten tired of looking at. At first, I rationalized it. Maybe something happened at work. Maybe she was processing something and didn't want to talk. I gave her space. I didn't push. I figured she'd talk when she was ready. That's what partners do, right? Wait it out. Be patient. But the next day was the same. And the one after. For days in, I realized this wasn't a mood. I would walk into a room, and she'd walk out. I'd leave a note on the fridge, she'd throw it away without reading it. The bed became an invisible wall. She lay on the far edge, her back to me, phone held high, her screen casting soft blue shadows across the wall while I stared at the ceiling. I tried to talk, gently at first, then with more urgency. I texted her while we were both sitting on the same couch. "Can we talk?" She picked up her phone, stared at it, then locked the screen without a word. That night, I made her favorite meal. She walked past the table, grabbed a granola bar from the pantry, and went upstairs. On the 6th day, I heard her laugh. Not at me, not with me, just into her phone. That carefree, high-pitched laugh she hadn't used around me in months. I leaned into the doorway of the office where she was sitting and asked, quietly, "Can we talk tonight?" She raised her finger in the air, the universal sign for wait, and kept talking to whoever was on the other end of the call. I waited for 3 hours. She never came. By the 7th day, I stopped asking. I became a background prop in my own marriage. I'd make coffee in the morning, sit down to tie my shoes, and she'd step over me like I wasn't there. Not a glance. Not a word. You'd think the silence would feel cold. But it didn't. It was scorching. Every hour that passed without a syllable from her lips felt like a silent scream. And it wasn't that she couldn't talk. It was that she wouldn't. She talked on the phone. She chatted with friends online. She even posted cheerful updates about her restorative solo journey on social media. And I just stood there, mute in her curated world. It was day 10 when I started noticing how deliberate it all was. Her friends came over that afternoon. They laughed, drank wine in the living room, and I heard one of them say, "So, are you still doing that silence thing?" "Yup," she replied without hesitation. Day 10. Almost broke on day 4, but he's too stubborn to beg. Another burst of laughter followed, light and airy, like they were watching a sitcom. Like I was the joke. That's when I finally understood. It wasn't just emotional distance. This was her way of punishing me. For what? I don't know. For not being exciting enough? For needing her more than she liked? Day 12. I started keeping track. Not just the silence, but the way she strutted around the house. Playing music, laughing on speakerphone, putting on her perfume like she had someone to impress. But never, not once, looking me in the eye. I watched her throw away a sweater I had given her just 2 weeks ago. No hesitation. No ceremony. Just pulled it off the hanger and into a garbage bag. That night, she ordered takeout for herself and left me nothing. Ate it in the living room. Dropped the empty container beside the couch. Day 13, she walked past me, wearing the same dress she wore on our first anniversary. I asked, "Going somewhere?" She didn't flinch. Just picked up her keys and walked out the door. I stared at the door long after it closed. By day 14, I no longer felt anger. Not even pain. Just a kind of hollow relief. The worst part wasn't what she did, it was how easy it became to accept it. How numb I had gotten to being erased. That morning, she looked surprised when I didn't make coffee. No breakfast. No checking the mail. I stayed in bed, eyes open, watching the light shift across the walls. She left again that afternoon. I heard the engine start, tires pull away. She had spent 2 weeks pretending I didn't exist. So I decided I never would again. And she wouldn't see it coming. I left before dawn. No bags, no goodbyes, no trace. Just my wallet, keys, and the clothes I slept in. I didn't slam the door, didn't even bother to take my phone charger. I wanted the house to feel untouched, like I had evaporated in the night. Let her wake up to silence. The same one she perfected over 14 days, only now she'd be the one drowning in it. I drove aimlessly at first, just to feel distance. Put 100 miles between me and that house before the sun even broke the horizon. I found a small motel off the highway, the kind of place where nobody asks questions and nobody remembers your face after checkout. I paid in cash. My phone buzzed once around 7 a.m. Her morning alarm, I assumed. I turned the screen face down and let it vibrate itself into exhaustion. Around 9 a.m., it buzzed again, longer this time. A call. I didn't check who it was. I just let it ring, then turned the phone off and slipped it into the drawer beside the motel bed. That day, I watched the ceiling for hours. Not thinking, not planning. Just adjusting. You spend long enough trying to keep something alive, you forget what it's like to let go. Your brain keeps reaching for familiar motions, texting her about errands, checking if she fed the cat. All of it. Habit without meaning. By evening, I walked into a local cafe and asked if they needed part-time help. Told them I was new in town and looking to keep busy. The manager, an older guy with no interest in small talk, said to come in the next morning. I nodded, shook his hand, and walked out with a quiet kind of victory humming under my skin. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to make her grovel or chase me down. I just wanted to not be hers anymore. Not her punching bag she dressed in smiles for guests. The second night away, I dreamed I was still in the house. Still waiting for her to speak. I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat, heart pounding like I'd been sprinting. It took a full minute to realize where I was. And then I laughed, this hoarse, guttural thing that scared even me. I'd escaped. And my body hadn't caught up yet. On the third day, I went to a hardware store and bought a cheap flip phone. No apps, no GPS, no distractions. I texted my employer, my landlord, and the one friend who might actually care. I'm off the grid for a while. Don't worry, I'm safe. That was it. No explanation. No return date. I didn't contact my parents. I didn't tell anyone where I'd gone. That version of me, the man who apologized just to keep peace, who counted silence as currency to trade for love, he didn't deserve a funeral. He deserved to just vanish. By day 5, I imagined her confusion had turned to irritation. She probably thought I was sulking, waiting for her to call my bluff. Maybe she even rolled her eyes at the empty side of the bed and muttered something about drama. Let her. On day 6, I stopped checking the old phone altogether. Left it off, untouched in the drawer. Whatever words she might be sending now, insults, fake concern, it didn't matter. She forfeited her right to speak into my life the moment she made my existence conditional on her mood. Instead, I opened a new bank account, bought a used laptop, found a room for rent with an older couple who didn't ask questions. They liked that I was quiet, called me low maintenance. I helped the husband install a new fence that weekend. It was the first time I'd used my hands for something real in months. My palms blistered, my shoulders ached, and I felt alive. The following week, I walked past a group of people laughing outside a cafe. A woman tilted her head back in a way that mirrored my wife's. For a moment, my chest tightened. Then it passed. I realized I hadn't thought about her voice in 2 days. Back at the motel, I opened the drawer and turned on the old phone, just once. It was instant. The screen exploded with messages, rows of them. Her name, over and over. Voicemails. Missed calls. Some from her, others from mutual friends. One even from her sister. I scrolled briefly, long texts, some with question marks, some with exclamations, some starting with please. I read none of them. She hadn't spoken to me for 14 days. 14 carefully curated days of silence, where she made sure I felt worthless, replaceable. Now she would know what it truly meant to be unheard. I don't know how long it took her to realize I wasn't coming back. Either way, it started with the messages. At first, they were spaced out. A few texts in the morning, some short ones in the afternoon. No emotion, just detached questions. Where are you? Are you seriously doing this? Grow up. Nothing that hinted at concern, only annoyance that her usual dynamic had failed. But I ignored them. Let them sit. Let them multiply like weeds in a garden I'd stopped tending. By the end of the week, her tone had shifted. Longer messages. As if trying to rebrand herself overnight. Can we talk? I didn't mean for things to get so bad. You know I love you, right? I just needed space. I was overwhelmed. This isn't like you. Please don't make me regret everything. Regret everything. That one made me laugh. I wondered if she regretted the way she waved me off like a leaf in the wind, or how she weaponized her silence like a guillotine. Did she regret the way she pretended I didn't matter until I proved her right by disappearing? No, I didn't believe it. What she regretted was losing the power. People like her don't panic because they miss you. They panic because they can't reach you. And when they realize you're no longer within their grasp, they flail. She wasn't grieving a husband. She was scrambling to recapture the convenience. Soon it escalated. She began calling people we knew. At first, subtly checking in with coworkers, casual mentions to mutual friends. But the more they shrugged, the more desperate she got. My buddy James texted me one night with a screenshot. "Your wife's been blowing up my phone, man. You okay?" I replied, "Alive and well. Just done." He didn't ask for details. Just sent back a thumbs up and a beer emoji. That was enough. But she wasn't done. She showed up at my old job. I wasn't there, of course. I'd already emailed my resignation the week before I left, explaining that I needed to step away for personal reasons. They accepted without question. I'd always been quiet, dependable. The kind of guy who disappears without a scene. She marched in anyway, according to the receptionist. Said she needed to speak to me urgently. When they told her I'd quit, she froze. Demanded to know where I'd gone. They didn't tell her anything. The next day, she called my landlord. Same result. I'd given him a forwarding address for the deposit, one that led to a P.O. box in a neighboring town. That weekend, she went to my parents' house. My mother didn't even let her in. I got a call from Mom that evening. She didn't sound surprised. She came here crying, she said flatly. Said she was worried about you. Claimed it was all a misunderstanding. I waited. She looked shocked when I told her she'd made her bed, Mom continued. I told her I raised a son who never would have vanished without a reason. Thanks, I said. You don't owe her anything, she replied, and that was that. It was around that time I started seeing her unravel through secondhand glimpses. Friends she hadn't spoken to in years suddenly got concerned calls. People I barely knew texted me things like, "Hey, man, just checking in. Your wife says you've gone off the deep end." I never responded. The messages kept coming. Some angry, some sad. Others just pathetic in their indecisiveness. "You're being cruel." "I'm sorry, okay? Just answer me. I miss you. I didn't mean to push you away." Eventually, she sent voice notes. Long ones. I never played them. I didn't need to hear her voice to know what they said. It would be a blend of guilt, tears, and deflection. Always the same song in a different key. She even tried emailing me through an old joint account we once used to plan trips. Subject line, "Please come home." I deleted it without opening. One night, I opened a burner account and visited her social media. Just once. She'd scrubbed everything of me. No photos. No posts. Nothing that hinted I'd ever existed. Except for one cryptic quote she'd pinned. "Some people only love you when they think they can leave first." I stared at it for a long moment. That wasn't about loss. That was her rewriting the story. Making herself the abandoned one. The brave victim of a man too fragile to stay. She hadn't just lost control, she'd lost the narrative. And that, for her, was unforgivable. In one last flurry of desperation, she tried contacting my older brother. He refused to speak with her. He told me later, she showed up at my office, man. Said she just needed closure. "You give her any?" I asked. He chuckled. Told her closure comes from within. Then I closed the damn door. I hadn't laughed that hard in weeks. By the 4th week of my disappearance, her silence had finally found an audience, herself. I could picture it, the walls of that house no longer echoing with her laughter or shallow dismissals, but with the unanswered questions circling in her head. The ones she never thought she'd have to ask because she believed I'd always be there to absorb the weight of her moods, no matter how heavy or petty they were. But ghosts don't argue. They don't text back. They linger just enough for regret to fill the space they used to occupy. The last person I expected to hear from was a mutual acquaintance we hadn't seen in years. She messaged my brother, apparently shaken after running into my wife downtown. "She's not okay," the message read. "She looks wrecked. Pale, jumpy, like she hasn't slept. I asked about you, and she nearly burst into tears. Kept saying she'd lost everything and didn't know how." I read it once, twice, then set the phone down. It didn't move me the way I thought it might. There was no rush of satisfaction. Like watching a storm through a window, violent, but distant. I'd started building a routine. Mornings at the cafe, afternoons helping a local contractor fix up rental properties. Evenings were mine. Reading, walking, sometimes driving to the coast to watch the sun melt into the sea. The silence that had once suffocated me had evolved into something clean. It no longer had her fingerprints all over it. That Friday, as I was locking up the cafe, I noticed an unfamiliar car parked across the street. Tinted windows, engine still idling. I paused, keys halfway into my pocket. A minute passed. Then the driver's side door opened. It was her. Hair pulled back into a tight knot. Eyes shielded by oversized sunglasses, posture stiff like she was bracing against a wind only she could feel. She didn't cross the street. Just stood there, one hand resting on the roof of the car, the other clutching her phone. I didn't move. She spotted me, finally. Her mouth opened slightly, maybe in shock. Maybe she didn't expect to actually find me. I watched her hesitate, clearly debating whether to call out, whether to approach. After a moment, she got back in the car and drove away. She didn't see me toss the cafe keys into the air and catch them without breaking stride. She was there to reclaim. That's the thing about people like her. They don't mourn you. They mourn the space you filled in their story. Later that night, I finally got the old phone again. The screen flooded with notifications like a dam breaking. Over 60 new texts, dozens of missed calls, several voicemails, each labeled urgent. The last message stood out, timestamped just 2 hours earlier. I was in your town today. I saw you. Please talk to me. Just 5 minutes. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened a note-taking app and typed, "You had 14 days to speak. Now you'll spend the rest of your life listening to silence." I didn't send it. I just stared at it for a while. Then I deleted the draft, powered down the phone, and placed it back in the drawer. Let her keep shouting into the void. The next week, her desperation became public. A friend sent me a link to a video she'd posted, a teary-eyed, shaky confession on social media. The kind that was too polished to be impulsive, too emotional to be honest. I pushed him away, she said to the camera, voice cracking in all the right places. I shut down when I should have reached out. I thought silence meant strength. But now I see. It was just cruelty. The comments below were a mix of sympathy and judgment. Some praised her vulnerability. Others called her manipulative. Most just said what I already knew. You never know what you have until it leaves without a word. A week later, the final message arrived. An email. Different from the others. No subject line. No introduction. Just a single paragraph. I've been replaying everything. The words I never said. The nights you tried to reach me and I turned away. I don't know what to ask for anymore. I don't even expect a reply. I just need you to know that I hear the silence now. Every single day. And I deserve it. She signed it with her full name. No love, no yours, no familiar warmth. Just a name and the weight of too late realization. I closed the email. Didn't reply. Instead, I opened a new tab and started searching for studio apartments near the coast. Somewhere with morning light, creaking floorboards, and neighbors who didn't know my past. As I clicked through listings, the only thing I thought was, this time, I'll choose where I belong. The apartment I chose sat 3 blocks from the ocean. Nothing glamorous. Just a clean, sunlit space with wide windows and hardwood floors that creaked when you walked barefoot across them. The kind of place where silence wasn't suffocating, but peaceful, almost sacred. There was no TV. Just a bookshelf, a coffee pot, and a weathered desk I picked up from a local thrift store. I moved in on a Thursday. It took 2 trips in a borrowed van to bring in everything I needed. Not everything I owned, just what I chose to carry forward. The second morning there, I sat on the balcony with a mug of coffee, watching the seagulls skim low over the water. No phone buzzing beside me. No tension in the air. No woman in the next room waiting for a reason to punish me for breathing the wrong way. Just wind, sunlight, and the scent of salt. I wasn't nursing wounds or rehearsing monologues I'd never deliver. That fire had burned out somewhere along the way, replaced by a quiet, steady clarity. The kind that doesn't ask for explanations. I took on freelance work, writing, fixing things, helping a neighbor restore old furniture. I didn't tell anyone where I was, because there was nothing left to say to the people who hadn't cared enough to ask until now. Every few days, I'd check the old email out of curiosity. Not out of nostalgia, just curiosity. Each time, there were new messages from her. Sometimes just one word, please. Other times, long blocks of text, rambly, full of apologies she probably practiced in the mirror. I never opened them. I watched them pile up like unopened bills from a life I no longer owed anything to. She must have figured out by now that I wasn't going to answer. But that didn't stop her. The messages kept coming. More spaced out now, but they arrived like clockwork. And then one evening, I got a message from her best friend, Julia. We hadn't spoken since the early years of the marriage. The subject line read, "She's not doing well." I clicked on it without thinking. I know you probably don't want to hear from anyone connected to her. I get that. But I saw her yesterday. She's not the same. She's unraveling. She barely eats. Sleeps with her phone in hand like she's waiting for you to suddenly come back to life. She says your silence is killing her, that she hears it even in her dreams. I don't know what happened between you two exactly, but I do know she didn't expect this. She thought you'd break. She thought you'd come back. She was wrong. I stared at the screen for a while, the cursor blinking at the end of Julia's name like it was waiting for a reply. There was nothing to say. I didn't respond. Instead, I got up, closed the laptop, and took a walk to the beach. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the sand, and the tide was pulling in slow, deliberate waves. I stood ankle-deep in the water, feeling the cold creep up my calves, and thought about what Julia said. She didn't expect this. No. She thought silence was a leash, that if she held it long enough, I'd come crawling back just to feel hurt again. What she never understood was that silence, the kind that grows from dignity instead of defeat, it isn't weakness. It's distance. It's the decision to stop bleeding for someone who sharpened the knife every night. A few days later, I received one last email. This will be the last time I write, I promise. I don't even know if you're reading these. I need to say it. You were right to leave. I didn't see you until you were gone. I didn't value you until you were unreachable. And now I hear my own voice bouncing off empty rooms, wondering what I thought I was accomplishing with all that silence. I miss you. But more than that, I miss the version of me you believed in. I wish I had listened. I wish I had chosen kindness when I still had the chance. Goodbye. She signed it with just her initials this time. Like she couldn't even bear to attach her full name to the memory anymore. I closed the tab. Her goodbye didn't need an echo. It needed to vanish. Later that night, I cooked dinner for myself, a simple pasta dish with roasted vegetables. I played an old jazz record, something I hadn't listened to in years. It filled the apartment like a long-forgotten friend. I poured a glass of wine, sat by the window, and watched the town slow down around me. Just a life. My life. And I intended to keep it.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.